we do not do social studies and science with Rebecca. We use it for spelling, math, and reading, and that's it. When I was first hired, basically she said, I want y'all to come up with your own units, your own activities, your own centers for social studies and science. And I loved it because I'd already been doing that at my other place. So the fun things like erupting volcanoes and launching rockets and digging for fossils and all those kind of fun things, they love it because not all children are learners by written word, are learners by memorization. A lot of children just need to learn by doing. And I mean, 3-year-olds need to be stimulated by tactile things and manipulatives and things that have different textures. I mean, 3-year-olds are still learning about their world. I mean, you know, we look at all the things. I mean, yes, they can do computers. It's amazing. They can double click and drag and all this stuff even when they're 3. But they're also still learning about just basic, simple things. I mean, for kids who've never been to the beach, I mean, a sandbox, that's a whole new experience for them. And I have a sandbox that I use for all, not just sand, but I mean, depends on what unit we're doing. If we're doing the 5 senses, I'll bring in something like coffee beans that have smell. There's all kind of weird things that they just are interesting and different for them. But preschoolers need to have so much hands-on stuff. And if you do a BECA for science and social studies, you probably already are having to kind of drag in nature-y kind of things into your classroom or share with other people because there's not a lot of resource stuff there. But them being excited and enthusiastic and not knowing what's coming around the next corner, that keeps those idle hands from getting into mischief and straying off from. And they're going to do it sometimes regardless, but it certainly minimizes that. And then the last thing I want to look at with the students is to encourage. And I've talked about this already, investing in your students. Praying for your students. Praying for your students. Because you love them and you care about them. I mean, that's doesn't cost a penny and it doesn't take that much time, but it's so important. And to let them know that you pray for them. Because you love them. We all know in private school we already invest our money in them. I mean, how many of you go out and buy bulletin board stuff? I mean, we don't have a resource room that has all that at our school. That's what we go with the teachers tomorrow for. So we're already investing our money. But your extra time, your extra attention, investing your attention. You know, one thing we have to remember, and I'm kind of jumping a little bit ahead, but I'm going to mention it here. You know, sometimes I think we assume because we're in private schools, we deal with a different demographic, and it's the more Brady Bunch kind of families that we're dealing with, but that's totally not the case. The I love you that leaves your lips may very well be the only I love you that child hears all day. I bet if I asked right now, how many of you ever had a class where every single student had a mom and dad in the house? I bet I would have very few hands at any. And that's why I think being a male in kindergarten is so important in elementary, because I can't tell you how many students I have been daddy for that year. Even ones that had dad. I've had a student whose dad was deployed in Afghanistan, actually Uzbekistan, for all but the last 6 weeks of school. I was dad that year. And, you know, to take the investment in them and knowing that may be the hug they get. You may be the only approval they get. The only pat on the back. I mean, so many of these kids come from broken situations, and I mean, even the ones that on the surface look kind of like the cleavers, you don't know what kind of door slamming is going on in that house at night. And it's just, you know, I think about things like that. It's just, you can't dwell on it because it would just absolutely break your heart and just depress you beyond means. But just to know that I believe with all my heart that God leads the students you get for a reason. And I tell them that you were decided to be in my class before the sun was put in the sky. And say, I'll get emotional talking about it because I'm crying now. You come to a K-5 graduation, you won't see a grown man cry. It's over. But, you know, I tell them, God had planned on us being together for this time from the beginning. And because of that, you're special to me. And you mean the world to me. And God knew what he was doing. And I never can think back on a year where I think of a situation where, man, God, I can't figure out why you put that one in my room. Now, there's some that are, maybe you can. We have some we think, well, maybe God is just trying to get my attention with this one. Maybe I'm being punished for something I did a couple of years ago. I'm not going to do this one. But knowing, I truly believe that's why when sometimes teachers say, go up to whoever is the one who divvies out the classes next year, if it's your administrative assistant, whoever, is like, hey, can you give me this one, please? Don't put that one in my room. I honestly try not to do that at all. There's certain ones, I will tell you, I've had three mamas that I taught at school, which was so cool. I have my third one this year, hopefully. It's so cool to have mamas that I taught. But we have to keep in mind, when I started in Hillcrest in '86, I taught elementary, so if I had students that were in 6th grade in '86, they can certainly have kindergartners by now. In fact, I have one that actually has fixed to be 7th grader at school. It's crazy. I lost my train of thought. But I don't request students because I'm trusting that God knows where they need to be. God sees what I cannot see. I can't see what needs there are at home. So I'm believing that that's going to be divvied up the way it's supposed to be. And I've never found that to not be the case in trusting that to be so. So make that extra step. That to me is what makes such a difference between an average teacher and an exceptional teacher, is someone who makes that personal investment in their students. Your teaching material, your achievement test scores look great. You did your job. But have you impacted to the fullest potential on that student? You dropped a seed, but did you fertilize it? Did you water it? Did you tend it? There's a difference. It's a huge difference. For the students who have difficulty, and this is another one of my issues with Rebecca, there's very little that's in there that has to do with remediation and with working with students that aren't quite getting it yet. There might be a paragraph that says, "And this is not work with children having trouble." Well, that's a lot of help, thanks. That really doesn't give much to go on. So you have to kind of look for signs, because this is another thing where you'll start having discipline problems, is when students start getting frustrated with not being able to do something. And when you see that, it's very easy to just say, when you've had kids who want to throw down their parents and say, "I can't do this," and I'm quick to say, "I can do all things in Jesus Christ." Thank you very much. But the ones that want to just give up on themselves and just to spend that extra time with them, and I'll show you with parents a specific idea on handling that. But watch for kids that are starting to have trouble and get frustrated and tuning out. That's the first one. They start tuning out when you think, "Oh, I am up here. I've got puppets, I've got fire, I've got dogs, I've got ponies," and they're still tuning out. Well, then we may have an issue, because if you can go to Disney World and walk through there like this, then we've got some issues, and that's really a sign. When you do these exciting things, it helps you identify those kind of problems. Praise, 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 praise for the littlest thing, especially for the ones that because you'll get to know kind of family situations pretty early on in the year. And I will tell you, I had a student year before last that bless her heart, was the only one in our entire kindergarten class out of 30 students that had nobody come to see her in the Christmas program. No grandparents, nobody. And I will tell you that this student has really it's like a second daughter to me. And it kind of throws back to investing in your students. She can be a handful. And a lot of her being a handful is because she has had to scrape and scream for every little bit of attention or provision that she's ever gotten. This is when you have a 5-year-old that packs her own lunch, and never has, every other child has a folder this thick of signed papers, and hers is the original emergency form from the first day of school. I've never invested more in myself than I did that particular student. And I will tell you, this past year when she was in 1st grade, and I was so blessed to have a 1st grade teacher that I have a real good bond with, and took the same